Hello one and all, and welcome back to the RimWorld Continental Army series. How's it hanging? It is I, your rat daddy. It feels ever so good to be back in our Continental Army series. I know you guys have been extremely excited for this series to come back, and as have I, of course. I've been on a teeny tiny bit of a hiatus there, working on some other projects, but I am glad to be back in our American colonies. All two of them, because we only have the two colonies. Speaking of which, of course, over at Numerous, I had asked you guys in the last episode to help me name the massive battle that went down, and I decided on one. This comment was left by our good friend Noctis Sombra 3015. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but you said that we should call it the Battle of Fallen Tortoise, as it basically is named after the first events that kicked off the massive battle, and I totally agree. I think this is an amazing name, so thank you. I went ahead and installed the Days Matter Continued mod to make this holiday, well, into an actual holiday. I have added this mod as well as quite a few others into the mod list, of course, which remember you can always find in the video description. Speaking of new mods, back at our main colony, we began working on some new tricorn hats that are actually added by the Redcoats! Mod. Up until this point, our tricorn hats have been from the Redcoat Apparel mod, I believe, and it's a teeny tiny bit outdated, and as you can see in this comparison between the two, the new hats, in my opinion, just look a teeny tiny bit better. And this, for me, is another good example as to why I like to take a little break here and there, especially if we're doing a longer series, because there are some mods that I like, but they're a teeny tiny bit outdated, or there's some better ones that come along, in my opinion, and, I don't really find those unless I'm experimenting with other projects. Speaking of other projects, it would appear that the Bullfrogs have been busy in my absence. The Prussians have spotted a Bullfrog Outpost just outside their territory. But not to fear, for the Americans are here. We ended up sending out a battle caravan led by Kanzaki and comprised of some of our normal average soldiers as well as our sharpshooters. However, since they're on foot, it is going to take them quite a while to actually arrive at the outpost, so in the meantime, I'd like to check back in on our wonderful smoke leaf production. As you can see, it is completely booming. We have basically an entire warehouse full of smoke leaves, but we have 390 smoke leaf joints, which will end up making Numerous a pretty penny. But I've touched on this briefly. The majority of the workforce here in Numerous is slave labor, and we all know that there's never been a war or anything in American history over slavery, but it does, worry me just a little bit. You see, back at the main colony, things are getting a little heated over such topics, and there is expected to be an abolishment of it very soon. Whether or not Numerous will comply, I suppose time will only tell. However, that's a topic for the future. For now, we have arrived at the Bullfrog Outpost. These filthy commie bullfrogs began scattering all around their base as we opened fire on them. However, I did notice that they were sporting some new technology, new weapons and apparel. Some of them even looked a little bit different too, sporting mandibles and wings and carrying massive metal tubes that fired explosive projectiles. If they had actually been accurate with their firing, this would have worried me quite a bit, and if we had been actually outnumbered, but thankfully there were plenty of us and not too many of them, so we easily took them down. We were able to closely inspect these weapons as well, using some type of toxic explosive as well as just a normal explosive. We would end up taking them back home. We also found some other strange technology the bullfrogs were using to power some type of flameless lamps. It was very odd, so we decided to take one of the metal contraptions back home. The other was too large, so we deconstructed it. We would then immediately set our sights on heading all the way back home with our spoils of war, all the new weapons and technology we had collected, but on the way back home we actually were ambushed by a group of manhunters. Now I know what you're thinking, damn it, a group of man-hunting bullfrogs, and that's what I was thinking, but unfortunately we're both incorrect. It was actually a very large group of man-hunting iguanas, no doubt sent by the bullfrogs. All those reptiles and amphibians are in cahoots. Thankfully, since we had a fairly large caravan, they weren't too difficult to take down. It really helped that the bullfrogs didn't really injure any of the soldiers either. Unfortunately, Jonathan ended up going down to the iguanas, but he would end up being fine in the end, and we ended up defeating them. But finally, with that threat neutralized, we could continue our journey all the way back home. I just want to say as well, even after getting some new parts for my computer, this save in this world is still kind of rough to run sometimes. I guess just because we have so many people and 2 separate colonies. So it does make traveling on the world map a little slow. Back home though, the president's personal guard was actually helping cut down some blighted pumpkin plants when one of them was slighted by the other and they got into a fist fight right there in the damn field. But then they basically immediately made up right after, so that was nice. And of course shortly thereafter that, our caravan had finally returned home with all the new weapons and technologies and yada yada. I said that a moment ago. I won't insult your intelligence, you already know what all we brought back with us. We went ahead and equipped the 2 new types of weapons, but we also equipped the old assault rifles that the bullfrogs drop because we just have so many of them and they're just so powerful. We also decided to do a little bit of testing with this metallic device that we received from the Bullfrog Outpost. It appears that it generates some type of static, maybe electricity, perhaps? Okay, we all know that's a battery. Kenzaki actually came up with some type of design for a lamp based on the ones that the bullfrogs were using, and it worked. Because of course it worked. Kenzaki's always coming up with these wonderful inventions that are just, well, wonderful for lack of a better word. We really began to wonder though, what were the possibilities of using this electricity? And of course, most likely the most important question is how can we generate more of it for ourselves? Well, that's exactly what Kenzaki set out to find out, and she immediately began researching into electricity. While Kenzaki was looking into her research, we ended up having a new recruit named Ishmael. Now, we've actually had quite a few other recruits being recruited while I've been doing other things like attacking the outpost and stuff like that. A total of 3 new recruits have come along since then. Now, you may see these 3 new recruits and say, oh, wonderful new additions to the army, and I kind of agree, but I also see them as, well, expendable for lack of a better word. And because these 3 strapping new soldiers are expendable, President Henry actually had a secret, top secret even, mission for them. I'm not going to lie though, it was basically a suicide mission though, but the reward, if it was successful and they returned alive, would be immense. For you see, my friends, Allied intelligence has managed to pinpoint exactly which outpost the Bullfrog King is at. He's currently on the move with his royal guard as well as a caravan of soldiers. Unfortunately, the outpost is heavily guarded and it's a bit too close quarters for us to get in to assassinate him, so we're going to have to whip out the big guns if we expect to take him down. We would have sent more soldiers, but due to the weather conditions, only a small group would have been able to travel here in time before he left. And that, of course, is why this mission is so dangerous. We immediately began opening fire on the bullfrogs and their outpost. We would even use the experimental rocket launcher technology that we received from the other outposts, trying to destroy as many of them as possible. The majority of the soldiers came at us first, meaning we would have to get through them if we wanted to get to the Bullfrog King, but he was no coward. Even he would begin chasing us down along with his men. One of our soldiers unfortunately fell to the frogs, and then we waited to try and fire the rocket to hit the others, and Ishmael fell, and then it was only down to 1 remaining American soldier. This is where she would make her last stand. I thought for sure she would die to some of their soldiers, but she managed to kill 2 bullfrog warriors, and she even managed to get to Ishmael's rocket launcher, where she would then fire at the Frog King. Unfortunately, this hardly did anything, and she then succumbed to her wounds, collapsing on the ground before the Frog King came over and killed both of them. The caravan was lost, as was the battle, and the assassination attempt was a bust. We failed. But of course, even in failure, even in darkness, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There will be other chances to take down that damn dirty communist Bullfrog King. And when those opportunities present themselves, we will be there. For the moment though, we do have some more important things to worry about. Due to Kenzaki's research, it would appear that we now have electricity, and we have created a very rudimentary generator that actually burns wood to produce said electricity. Now of course, I know a lot of you didn't really want me to make a huge leap in technology or anything, so worry not, this electricity is only going to be powering some very simple electronics like our water boiler and some lighting. While we're on the topic of water, here in the bathroom in the White House, I think the flooring is very ugly with this wood flooring. I don't even remember why I ended up using wood for the flooring, so I ended up using some of the blocks we had lying around for some beautiful mosaic tile, and I ended up building some pretty little lamps that worked off electricity. Now that seems much more like a bathroom you would see in such an official building. It was during this time as well that two of our soldiers were getting married. Hayo proposed a lifelong commitment to Kenzaki, and Kenzaki actually agreed. Now the two of them are considered fiancés, and I just couldn't be happier for them, to be honest with you. Back over at New Marseille, we ended up having a slaver caravan arrive, and unfortunately, of course, the good folks over at New Marseille were quite quick to begin trading with them, trading a bit of gold for 2 new slaves. Quite disgustingly, I might add, one of them was even a small tribal child. New Marseille obviously has a different morality and different morals in general, I suppose, than the capital city, and there is quite the difference in culture that is building. At some point, it is very possible that Governor Beardy and President Henry will end up coming to blows over this difference in culture, quote-unquote, and difference in morality and just what they see as right and wrong. But that will be for a later episode. Today, we have done quite a bit, I must say. We've achieved quite a bit in terms of new technology, in terms of weapons. Unfortunately, we did not achieve the assassination of the Frog King, but like I mentioned, there will always be other opportunities, and we will definitely take those when the time is right. But I love you guys ever so much. I hope you have enjoyed. Sorry it took me quite a while to come back to this series. I was just working on the Clone Army Season 2, as well as some other projects, and I had a lot of fun doing that as well. But I love you guys ever so much. I will see you next time. Goodbye.